Hi, everyone, and welcome to Oddly Specific. I am thrilled to welcome Shanteona Keys to this podcast. Shanteona is a women's basketball analyst and the host of Genuinely Curious, a podcast for the girly who thrives at the intersection of sports and pop culture. She also has a fantastic social media presence, you guys, and an impeccable eye for style and fashion. I have so much that I want to talk to her about that I'm already thinking about how we can have her back. Hopefully, she likes us. So, welcome, Shanteona, to Oddly Specific, the only podcast that covers everything from private equity to Pete Davidson.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I love your podcast because it is combining pop culture and sports. And I would love if you could just walk me through, because I know these are intertwined, but
Yeah.
could you explain to the class? And by the class, I mean the TikTok commenters who come on and tell me that there isn't an intersection. Could you
Right.
explain how there is?
Yeah, no, well, for me, naturally there is because my interest in sports, right? And then I think we've had big storylines in the last couple, well, say in the last year, especially, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. Like, I think that's the most obvious crossover, but anything that's popular in the sports arena falls in the pop culture. Like, I mean, it's in the zeitgeist. We're talking about it, right? So I try to find those things where there is that element of both, where it's popular enough for us to be talking about in a pop culture sense, where it doesn't have to be about the X's and O's or the analytics, right? It's more of what are the storylines, and sports are full of storylines. So I think that that's essentially the crossover point or the reason that we care about it.
Yes. And I will say, the only people who ever come on my page and tell me oh, pop culture isn't, connected to sports and is white men. So
Yeah.
let's just
Yeah.
make it
Fair.
very clear.
Yep.
So, Shanteona, tell me a little bit about your background with basketball, because you played in college, you've coached. I would love to know, how you got into the WNBA.
Yeah. No, so I started playing sports around middle school, worked really hard and went to college to play. And, once you're kind of in that basketball world and taking it that seriously, I mean, it envelops you in a way. And for me, my crossover with the WNBA, I mean, there are touch points throughout my life, but, I had like a Shamiqua Holtzclaw jersey when I was a kid because my mom probably got it from some random store. But I really didn't start playing basketball until much later. I was a late comer, if you will. When I was in high school, the Atlanta Dream was started here in Atlanta. And so we used to go to those games a lot. My family, me, my mom and sister, we go down there. In those days, going to a WNBA game was quite low maintenance. You get there, you kind of have your meal, you go. Like, it was an entire event because it didn't require all the planning that some of these other sports require. But the team started here, they were having success, and it just kind of grew from there. So I was lucky in that sense, right, that my town got a team while I was growing up. And so I was able to see some of my favorite players play. Maya Moore is here. Well, she wasn't in Atlanta, but she's from Atlanta. She plays in WNBA, so she's a draw. And we had a lot of great players coming through here at that time. Yeah, that's my crossover with WNBA. Sports, obviously, again, I played through college, and I've pretty much not had a job away from sports since I graduated. So I haven't really been able to escape basketball, but I love the game and love being around it.
What do you love about coaching versus playing?
It's interesting. Coaching is, again, something that I haven't been able to kind of get away from. I never anticipated being a coach, which is what's
Really?
funny about it. Oh, yeah. I was never into it in that way. Didn't feel like I had enough to give from a X's and O's standpoint. And so at each step of my life, the reason I was doing it was to help, the girl who was like me, who was, wanting to change. I mean, for me, that changed the trajectory of my life in so many different ways. And, it was a generational impact for my family. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's something that I found that I'm good at, I guess. I've always been a people person.
Yes.
Been a leader in that way. Sports kind of cultivated that in me. And so there are certain things that come quite naturally to me. The X's and O's less naturally, or at least not to the level that I would want to give to be like a college coach, right?
Right.
That requires a lot. But yeah, never saw myself doing this. 10 years ago, if you would ask me that, I would say, oh, absolutely not. And I found myself coaching at every level at this point. And I found myself working in coaching I worked at the Women's Basketball Coaches Association at one point. It was a manager of education there. So again, I haven't been able to kind of navigate my way away from it, but you can't deny something that, I guess keeps pulling you back in.
Yeah, and it kind of reminds me of how important it can be to sometimes say yes to the opportunities that, aren't the thing that you had thought you wanted to do.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And that's the thing. Again, it was a thing that kept popping up. So, at one point I'm coaching at a program that I used to play in. So I'm doing that because I'm gonna pay my bills doing that, or I have the time to do it and I want to be helpful, which then turns into the next thing, the next job where someone asked me to coach here. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I still have the time to do it. I could, it just kind of snowballed in a lot of ways for me. And, I'm grateful for it. I've learned so much about, again, leadership and managing people, and how, I'm constantly around young kids at this point. Like, so I'm always aware of what's going on in girls basketball, women's basketball, and kind of the ways that, sport impacts girls, because I'm a big advocate of that. And that's really the reason, I mean, the main reason that I've continued to coach is because I know how impactful it was for me in my life. And I know how important it is for young girls growing, for their self-esteem and their, again, leadership ability, all these different things, work ethic. And so that's been my driving force a lot of those years and reasons for taking those jobs. Yeah, I just love being around the kids and teaching them and, passing the game on. I feel like, we are stewards of the game, and if we know how important the sport is, why not pass it along? And I think that that's being shown in the WNBA now. We have former WNBA coaches who are staying in the game, and that's making all the difference.
Yes. And I think that is a really good segue to this next question, which is the WNBA is in its 28th season. The NBA, it's in its 77th season. I was like, okay, so the WNBA is a millennial and the NBA is, I mean, I guess it's a boomer. It feels a little old to be a boomer, but anyway, I don't know, maybe it's the silent generation, which honestly would track you guys. As someone who, got to grow up really firsthand with a league too, because that is, such going to the games is so important, y'all. And I just want to make a pitch to going to the games right now. Y'all, I'm going to a game with a bunch of my girlfriends in a couple weeks. And I just want to say, none of you guys owe me money. I'm putting this out there into the universe. I'm going to tell you that I bought 12 tickets for less than $200. We're having a girls' night. It's going to be amazing. When you buy in a group sales, at least for the Sparks, you don't have to pay the fees.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
And so I'm like, and you can also take the train to the crypto.com arena. So, it's easier than going to a movie in
Yeah.
these days.
Yeah. Wow.
So, just want to plug that. You guys always know I'm plugging going to a game, but what has the league meant to you prior to this year? In part two is there's something that you wish some of these new fans that are coming in knew about the league.
Yeah, I think it's a loaded question. I feel like I have a lot of thoughts when it comes to that. But I guess its impact on me is that it's shown, these, and I didn't go on to be a professional basketball player, but it goes to show that women are just as valuable in the sports space as men are. I mean, the WNBA, as far as women's leagues go, is the most successful. It continues to push the barrier, and its existence continues to prove that there is value in our game, and women hold value in this space, and are going to continue to push the industry. But as far as new fans coming in, I guess I would say, we're grateful because obviously where the eyes are, the money goes. So thrilled for that. But with it, obviously, it brings its misogyny with it. That has been difficult. It brings its biases with it. Yep. And so that's difficult as someone who loves the game, who's obviously been around the game for a long time. It's hard to see newcomers come in. And look, you have a comment section the same way I do. Okay. The minute you bring up a women's sport, okay, your entire comment section, your mentions are going to go up in flames. I mean, I've had successful videos that I've hated because they're only being engaged with because there are men in my comments like losing their mind. And so then you're like, okay, I'd rather not have the video. I mean, it's like, who's benefiting from this video? But all that being said, yeah. I think for newcomers into the game, we want to welcome you, but please, like, play by the house rules. Like, that's all I can say about it.
Yeah, I saw someone do, I think it was a tweet yesterday that said about actually attending the games. They were just talking about like who's in the room, right? And they said it's also hetero men who are a little scared of women. And I was like, that's who's in the room, but that's not who's in the comments.
Yeah, I don't know who these people are. I mean, again, before this new movement of people caring about women's sport, or not, excuse me, people have cared about women's sports. But again, the average person that was not, the target audience before, there were people in those comments. Again, it could be NBC's post, and they're like, "Where's the kitchen?" Like, you came out of your way to comment on an NBC post. Like, those people are the people I'm talking about. And I don't think that they're bots. I really think these are genuine guys, like you said. Like, some of them terrified of women, terrified of what women are capable of. They hate a girl at work. Like, I don't know, but who are these people?
Yeah, and I think the other thing that is maybe hard for some of them to admit is I would argue we're seeing better basketball out there than the NBA.
It's certainly arguable. I mean, there's defense. I know that. And look, and I'll say this, I don't watch the NBA very much. Until it comes to the finals, you don't really have a viewer in me. I don't have an allegiance to a team. I never was like a Hawks fan. We could dive into that later. But I was, yeah, never a Hawks fan. And so it's hard for me to follow. And I'll be honest with you. What storylines are there? You pull me in with storylines. That's where I'm at. So if there's not some compelling story or star that we're watching, I'm like, I'm out. But yes, I agree. There's better basketball being played. Like, from a fundamental standpoint,
Yes.
I know people try to use that as a negative. Like, women are playing fundamental basketball. It's like, okay, well, if you're a basketball purist
Right?
and you understand the game, then you should be enjoying women's basketball. So yeah, I think that is a selling point.
Also, I would argue the dramatics themselves are so much
Yeah.
lower in women's basketball. A man falls in women's basketball in men's basketball,
Mm-hmm.
and you would think that the world had ended. I'm like, I'm pretty sure you're the reason you fell.
Well, and even the arguments that happen, even like the social media conversations, the first take conversations, everybody wants to act like the women are such a drama filled. Oh my God, everybody's beating down on Cailtin. There's all of that where they're like, women just need to. And it's like, okay, if on any given day, far more days out of the year than you're ever talking about the WNBA because the season is short. Your 82 game season or whatever, like, we're talking about ridiculous things.
Yes.
On TV, the talking heads are talking about ridiculous things. Your fans are talking about ridiculous things, and so just like most things, like, women are being judged more harshly than the men are.
Yeah.
But I'll say this: I love the drama in the WNBA too, because I think it makes it compelling. And if I'm not saying we need to have everything the men have, but we're allowed to have drama too.
Totally. And I also think like our drama is coming out in ways that I think is a lot more interesting, like the outfits, and we'll get into all of that. But, just getting ready for this podcast this morning, I was watching an interview from last night's Fever Storm game. They were interviewing Cailtin Clark and Aliyah Boston right after the game. And, it was a pretty rough loss for the Fever, but I also think pretty indicative of how they've been playing, right? They were up against a pretty tough team. But in the interview, I saw a tweet afterwards that said, 3 minutes in, and they were only asking Cailtin Clark questions. First of all, that's wrong, because I watched the tape. It was longer than 3 minutes.
Wow.
Okay. It was question after question to Cailtin Clark. And the questions were things like, Cailtin, what do you want your legacy as a rookie to be? It's like, oh my God, like, not right. Like, if you want to ask her that at the end of the season, if you want to ask her that in a sit down, like, magazine style interview, fine. But like, the girl just got off the court and you guys are hitting her with these like existential questions. And finally, and Aliyah's just sitting there, okay, like, just sitting there waiting. And finally, Cailtin says, can you please give a question to Aliyah? Like, I'm like, and I think, if you want to ask me what I think it's rooted in racism. I believe it's rooted in racism. I think if I asked the reporters in the room, is this rooted in racism? They'd be like, no, absolutely not. So I guess my question is, how can the media adjust to offer better coverage of the WNBA? And do you feel that line of questioning is rooted in racism?
Yeah. So in short, yes, that's yes, because everything in this country actually, I mean, amounts to the answer is racism. Okay, but more than that, if you look at the WNBA historically and how the media has covered it, right? This is a league of predominantly Black women, like overwhelmingly. The sport of women's basketball is overwhelmingly Black in America. You go back 5, 10, any year that you would like to in the, the life of the WNBA, and you ask who's the face of the league, more times than not, it is not going to be a Black woman, though the league is Black. Right. So it's hard to say, like, what should the media do? Well, they've had over 20 years to try to figure this problem out. It was obviously about marketing. And I mean, it's the same thing, when we talk about why is the U.S. women's national team, 10 years ago, why were they more marketable? Well, there are a lot more blonde, petite women on the women's soccer team that you can galvanize a fan base. Of course, they care about the masses care about how that person looks, but in general, more palatable, right? And the conversation this season has been about, Asia Wilson is really the face of the league. If we're being serious, right? And two-time MVP, the stat she's putting up, two-time champion, she is the face of the league when it's all said and done. But if you ask the average person, no, that's not who they're going to say. And 3 years ago, they would have said Sabrina Ionescu. And 3 years before that, they would have said Breanna Stewart. So, I mean, it's part of the media's problem. It's a part of the marketer's problem. And so what needs to happen is there has to be a concerted effort to not prop up, frankly, the next white woman who's going to be the face of the league, or that they want to be the face of the league. And I get it. That's what is going to sell, because America is going to want that. Mm-hmm. But there's a responsibility for this game in particular, the WNBA, that is overwhelmingly Black. There is a responsibility for those who are coming into the space, media included, to be more responsible with their platforms. So yeah, I saw the video you're talking about. I didn't watch the whole thing. I just saw, maybe a minute where Cailin is asking, the reporters, like, please ask her a question. And Aliyah, you can tell they're both fed up. Right? These are 2 number 1 picks who have had the world on their shoulders for the last 2 years in different ways, but the same, right? Aliyah, someone who gets looked over because of her new teammate on a team that frankly gets overlooked because of their new teammate. And that teammate, I'm sure, is sick of it too. She doesn't want to answer the questions about legacy every other day and make this thing like bigger than it is. A loss to Seattle, and now all of a sudden she's talking about legacy. Like, what are we doing? So there are a lot of people who are responsible for the problem, but yeah, to your point, the root of the problem is the same as it's always been.
Yeah. And, just to people out there, I think, who want to weigh in and say, well, Aliyah Boston should speak up. No, the responsibility is not on Black women.
Right.
Yeah. And, if I was a media person right now if I was I am a white person who does talk about media, but I'm saying, like, if I was a white media person covering the WNBA, I would recommend right now taking a course I don't want to hear like, oh, well, we all have to do an HR training. Okay, that's great. And that's good. You should. But like, do something else.
Right.
Take an anti-bias training. Like, really try to educate yourself on the systemic issue that's happening here. Because even like, I mean, just if you had just done question to 1, question to 2,
right,
like it would be so much better.
Well, I wonder if, sorry to cut you off.
No, please.
And I wonder, and only the people in the room or, people familiar in that media space and the people who are coming, because obviously there are new journalists from publications that were not there. I was in the LA Sparks media room 2 years ago, and it was not overflowing. There might have been 10 journalists there asking questions. And so I'm just curious, things like the legacy question, right? Are those people who are new to the room? And if you're new to the room, like, maybe read the room a little bit, So I'd be curious, some of these outlandish more, and again, even the if I'm in the room I'm wondering, well, that's on everybody actually. I guess because I guess journalists after journalists for minutes at a time just continue to point questions at Cailin. So I can't imagine everybody is new. Sorry, I'm processing this
No,
now.
because I was thinking about it too, because when I really started to notice her getting pissed, it was when a man asked her. Like
Okay.
that's where like I noticed the switch in her where she was just like, I am done. And like I think my other thing would be to say if you are a white journalist in the room, maybe take a step back.
Yeah.
There's a lot of us around, guys. There's a lot of us in spaces. And, sometimes it's good to shut the fuck up.
Fair. So that's one way to put it. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. And even for fans, we talked about fans earlier. Like some people just need to like zip it. I said this on my podcast the other day after the Stephen A. Smith and Monica McNutt thing on First Take, where it's like some people you're not equipped. You're not equipped to talk about it. And I'm not throwing shots at Stephen A. I just mean the people on these networks. I think McAfee had something wild. Mm-hmm. He said, and so again, it's like some people. And I get it. Your producers, I get the clicks if it has Cailin's name on it, it is going viral. Okay. I get that. But I also know some of you are not prepared for that conversation. And so you're either going to catch up in your knowledge to be able to speak about it. Like you said, go to a class, do these sorts of things, learn about the WNBA and its history, or you should just sit it out. There is that possibility. Or as you put it, just shut up. Yeah.
And I just want to say, like, for the record, I am, I've been into the WNBA for a couple of years now. I'm still learning. I'm a white person who's still learning and unlearning. I got a lot of work to do. And when I knew I wanted to do a podcast on the WNBA, I was like, I'm not equipped to do that. So, I spent a lot of time trying to find someone that I felt like would be awesome, which yay, thank you. And then, I spent a lot of time thinking about this conversation. So, and I still got a lot of work to do. So anyway, forever a work in progress.
That self-awareness will keep you from asking ridiculous questions in a room though. You get what I'm saying? Like there are people where it's obvious that they care about that and they care about not taking up more space than they should in a space. And some of these people just are not getting that. They just want the headline. They need the headline.
Yeah. And that's the thing, you guys, like a rising tide lifts all boats. So sometimes let someone else kick the question. Cause like, you're going to still get your soundbite, like,
right.
Which actually brings me to a question where I might take up a little bit of space because I want to ask you, who do you think is the strongest rookie in the league right now? Because I have an opinion. I think you already know my opinion, but I want to hear your opinion.
Yeah. Okay. So I know yours is Rickea Jackson.
Yes.
And I'll be honest, I haven't seen a ton of Sparks games. And I'm
gonna You gotta come visit. Come visit.
Well, so I'll be in town in a couple of weeks, but I don't know if I'll be able to get to a Sparks game, but hopefully I can.
Listen, I got an extra ticket for July 2nd.
Oh yeah, your group package. Yeah.
I bought an extra one.
Well, yeah, I'll definitely let you know what my dates are. Yeah. And just like gutted for the program in terms of Cam Brink, like that. She was in the rookie conversation, right?
Totally.
So it's just, and I hate that now it feels like it amounts to Cailin versus Angel. And it's like, okay, we've done the headline, we've done it, like we've done that talking segment on every show. It's just hard to come back for that to be the conversation now. So I appreciate that you have Rickea Jackson in there because it takes that conversation from being about two people and this rivalry and all of that. And then even, this is not a rookie, but Lexi Brown. Oh, yeah. So she's going to be out now. But anyway, she's a Georgia girl. So I know her from basketball growing up. I'm going to give the edge currently to Angel Reese just based on the record of double-doubles, right? Like she was going for that record in the SEC, right? To see her continue that, because there was so much conversation about she's not going to be the same kind of player. She can't do the same things. And like, this is one of those things, right? She was able to bring from her time in college to now. So I think that that's important. That's valuable. But it does feel like it's going to come down to, because I'm hoping the people who vote are going to make it something more than a popularity contest, right? I'm hoping that it amounts to who is able to lead their team further. That's what I'm hoping will happen, right? Because their records are about the same right now. I think Indiana Fever, they're down a game. They lost last night. So yeah, I think they're down a game. I'm hoping something like that, where we can look at it and we go, all right, that makes sense. Because Caitlin's going to be able to put up numbers that are comparable to a double-double record, I think. I think so. I think what she's doing for a rookie is also great, right? Sniffing a a triple-double some nights. Like, I think it's going to be hard to say that their numbers are not comparable, like close.
Totally. Actually, statistics wise, I was just looking at this. I do think that Angel has a slight edge stats
Okay.
wise over Cailtin right now. And I
Okay.
would agree with you. I would say, if we want to, look at the two of them, I do think that Angel is playing better. I do.
Yeah.
And,
Well, she's more efficient. I
she
mean,
is.
right. So in that category, she wins. But they are playing right. Like Caitlin's shooting from three. Those numbers are not comparable. And I get it. Like the analytics can do plus minuses and all that. But Angel plays on both sides of the ball. She plays offensively and defensively. Caitlin, not so much. So yeah, I think that there are things that you can kind of parse out. And again, I hope it amounts to more than there are little girls coming to watch Caitlin every day. Like I really
Oh
hope
my God, I know. Believe me, I know. With that in mind, let's just chat about the Olympics for a few minutes, because I did some Olympics content when the roster came out.
Yeah.
And my takeaway was Caitlin's not on this team. Great decision. That was a great decision. The people who are on that team are the ones who should be on that team. There is not one rookie on the team, right?
Yep.
I think I'm
Right.
I'm
No,
just
you're
going
right.
through this list.
Yep.
Not one rookie on the team. And I would love for you to just quickly talk us through what the difference is between WNBA basketball and Olympic level basketball, because people came at me so hard when I said Cailtin not being on the team is the right choice. And I'm like, you clearly don't know basketball.
Right. Yeah. So there are certainly differences in terms of FIBA basketball, international basketball, and spacing and things like that. But more importantly, for me, it came down to there's nothing that she brings that there's someone else on the roster that doesn't bring.
Yeah.
Right. And they bring experience.
Yes.
And these are people who have waited in line for their chance for the USA team. This is the hardest team in the world to make. Like we talk about how hard it is to make the WNBA, right? Like we talk about their 144 spots, hardest team in the world to make. This is much harder. And so, I mean, there have been people left off of this roster who were all-stars, who were, MVP potential candidates that have been left off in the past. And so this idea that because of her popularity, she should have been on the team is actually absurd. And I don't think that they would be having the same conversation on the men's side. They would say, oh, that's crazy. He's too young. Why, there were other better candidates, there'd be a segment on every show, which, I mean, for Cailtin, that's what it ended up being anyway. It was everybody had to talk about it. But the Olympics are not about popularity. And I don't think people understand that. And I get it. People say, these big networks are struggling to get ratings and all this stuff. But I don't know that the Olympics count in that category, nor do I think that the world was going to tune in to watch Cailtin play, because she's not going to get the majority of minutes.
Right. That's the other piece. Like if she goes, which by the way, here's the second question for you. If there even was a conversation about Cailtin being in it, shouldn't there be a conversation about Angel Reese being in it? Like, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, no one is really saying that, but if they're playing pretty comparably right now and both up for rookie of the year, but these rookies are exhausted.
Oh, 100%. And I think every rookie class is tired by the time they get to the WNBA, because you've been playing since, beginning of October. You've really had practice probably before that. And so, I mean, you see injuries like Cam Brinks, frankly, where it's like their bodies are tired. Mm-hmm. Emotionally, this rookie class, like you said, are tired. They're doing things that other classes have not had to do. And for good, right? Like they're making more money, they're getting more airtime, more media coverage. So they're doing what is necessary, but they are tired. They're tired of being interviewed every 5 seconds. They're tired of the same storylines. Now, the classes will start to get used to this, right? Like now that NIL is a thing, a lot of these kids will be prepared once they come into the league. But it feels like this is like the class where the tide kind of turns. So like,
right.
I think of it in terms of like how the 96 Olympics were considered where Title IX had like these were the
Yes.
Title IX babies. This was
Yep.
the dream. This is the first year that this has all come to fruition. This is what that feels like for me. It's like the NIL that changed NIL and social media, I'll say
Yes.
paired together, right? So social media, athletes being able to take over and market themselves several years ago, added with NIL and making them a face of products and things like that. Those two things married together have created this inflection point that we have right now.
I think that really does bring us to my next question, which is on the college level, what should we be looking for next season? Because like we are, I feel like we are all hyped up. And listen, there are other great players playing at the college level right now here in LA. We have Juju Watkins, which is super exciting. So what do you see the future of the college level being like after this historic year?
Yeah, I'm an optimist in that I really do hope that we can maintain this wave because of those two things that I said, the NIL and social media. NIL has revolutionized women's sports or basketball for sure. For sure. I would say that. We're not seeing it as much in some of those other spaces, but social media has revolutionized women's sports. I mean, going back like pre-pandemic, right?
Sure.
Being able to market yourselves.
Yep.
The idea of a player being out and proud in any way in their life 10 years ago was unheard of. 6 years ago, frankly, was unheard of. And so when these women were free to do that, we got to see that they care about fashion and they care about cooking and they care about all these different things that made them a whole person. Before that, I could probably, you would ask a kid what LeBron James had for, what's his favorite dinner, and they know. They didn't know that about Maya Moore, right? And so being able to see these players is huge. Visibility, obviously huge. Media coverage, probably most important. So I don't think that is going to change. Now, will there be another face of basketball next year who is probably a white woman? Yes, it'll be Paige Beckers. Okay. The good news is Paige Beckers is someone who has actively tried to do the work. I think some of that is from her family.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of that is her, who she's surrounded with on her basketball teams, that sort of thing,
Mm-hmm.
who she's decided to befriend. But she's had several moments in her career where she has spoken up or felt, said something on the behalf of Black women, not for them. Yeah, not speaking for them, but right to advocate for. And so I think that she's, of all the past faces, like she's going to be my favorite. Now, like you said, you have a Juju Watkins, whose her marketability is insane. I imagine there are going to be celebrities at all kinds of home games next year. The market that she has in LA, it's limitless to what could be done there. And then there are people who utilize the transfer portal, that I think are going to be able to find themselves in a better position to be marketed for a program and change the program. Will we feel the absence of a Cailtin Clark? Yeah, I do. I think so. But I think it's enough momentum to create another moment like that.
Yeah, maybe we'll lose some of these like annoying guys.
Please, please.
Every episode of my podcast, we do something where we get oddly specific about something that is just something that I can't get enough of. And so the thing that I can't get enough of is your breakdowns of the WNBA tunnel fits. For the uneducated, can you please tell us about the incredible things that are happening in the WNBA tunnel, and then also how that fits into sports at a larger level? Because tunnel walks have been happening forever, and then we're gonna get into some of my faves. But first, I want to hear like, how did you come up with this idea of doing the ranking? And yeah, just I love it.
Yeah, no, I think it was just something random I just decided to do. As content creators, we're always looking for like what's something quick that can be done. People like lists for some reason.
Oh yeah.
I grew up watching, like on E where they would say like if it was a nice outfit or not, hot or not, the best dress list, that sort of thing. And so I saw power rankings in terms of a friend I know was doing power rankings for like soccer, I think.
Sure.
And I was like, well, I mean, and I think I get away with it because, well, actually, the average person who comes across my video doesn't know that I know basketball. But like on Instagram, like those people they have a good idea of who I am and like that I care about the game actually.
Right.
But yeah, no, I just think it was like a fun thing to do. I have no fashion background. But I do know what I like.
My gosh.
Yeah.
I thought you had a fashion background too.
No. No, 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 no. I feel like I have an eye for what I like, and like usually what I like. I'm a pop culture girly. I'm a
Right.
top 40 girly. Like I'm basic when it comes to that sort of thing. So if I like it, it's probably most people like it.
Yeah.
And so I watch or I consume a lot in terms of like fashion,
Mhm.
but no, I have no background. The way that I dress in my daily life, you wouldn't consider a fashion girly. But again, I feel like I have an eye for it. I know what I like. And for the WNBA, I know people think it's like trivial. I think people think like, oh, she's minimizing the game by only talking about this. Again, I do that because I know that I know what I'm talking about in terms of the game, the basketball parts. And I'm not trying to reduce anybody to their outfit before the game. But there's a marketability that comes with these tunnel fits. Again, it's also continuing to color in the photo of who these women are. You know, you look at the WNBA draft from 2003 and they're wearing these boxy, like more masculine suits,
Yep.
which like if that was their vibe, do that. I don't care. But that wasn't always the case. Or they were put in these short, I mean, not shorts, like a dress at one point, right? And that wasn't some of them either. And so now they get to express themselves in the way that makes them comfortable. And I think that that gives representation to all girls across America on how, you know, you can be perceived in sport. You can be all these different things. You can be multifaceted, you know, more masculine, more feminine, whatever that is, wherever you land, there's someone in the WNBA who dresses that way. And again, if you're someone who likes fashion, it can pull you into the game that way. It's one of the most, I think it's going to be one of the most revolutionary aspects of this kind of current movement right now. Like Cailtin Clark is dressing in Prada most days. That could not have been
She is
said.
a Prada girly, isn't
Yeah. She
she?
has to be, she's got to be some sort of ambassador. They just haven't announced it, but
Yeah.
she has it on every night. 5 years ago, no, that's not happening. They're not dressing a WNBA player. And on my podcast, I talked to a stylist.
I listened. It's such a good episode, you
Yeah.
guys. You have to listen. This she used to work for Serena.
Oh my gosh, insane, insane. But just that conversation about they were not able to get pieces. Which, like, okay, we get it. I'm sure that happens all over, even for, you know, a D-list celebrity. They're not going to be dressed. But for them to now see the value in what these women are bringing, I think is huge. And, you know, this is just the beginning for that.
Yeah, someone asked me the other day, they were like, hey, because I'll be honest, I'm a little critical of the Kardashians. And someone asked me,
Same.
what do you think of the Skims WNBA campaign?
Oh,
And I said, here's the bottom line. I want those women to make money.
yep.
So if a check is cashing, I'm thrilled for them. I have my issues with the Kardashians. I have my issues with Skims. But like at the end of the day, I just want the women of the WNBA to be making money because guess what? If they're making more money, other women are making more money.
Yeah. Yes. No, that is exactly how I felt about it. And I didn't like say anything about it because it was like, whatever. Again, these
You got to
women,
pick your battles.
right. They're getting the bag. And I'm happy, like you said, for that. That is paramount. But for me, it's like the irony of like who the Kardashians end up hurting and emulating
Black
to
women.
come to this league. Yeah. To come to this league. Oh, yeah, no, that was tough. That was tough for me. I'm glad it was like a day or two news cycle and we moved on because I was like, I cannot do this. And they seem to be thrilled about it, you know? And again, they're getting paid, but I do think that they saw value in her being or wanting to be in that space. But I was just like, oh my gosh, from someone who likes to think critically about these sorts of things, that was hard.
Yeah. And it's really, like you said, it's a both and there, right? Like
Mhm.
not don't love the person behind the brand,
Yeah.
don't love what the brand is doing because it's also like, you know, putting these unattainable beauty standards on women too. So
Mhm.
that's like
Yep.
another there's so many complicated layers
Mhm.
to it. But, you know, free underwear is great.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm happy if those women don't have to buy underwear for an entire season. Good for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
So
heard it's like good quality, sadly.
you guys, you know, I've talked about it many times. I like Chantel. That is my underwear of choice, and it is
Uh,
cheaper than Skims. So you can get 3 for $48 at Nordstrom. I'm just putting that out there. I'm not a sponsor. If you want to sponsor me, Chantel, you know where to find me. So I do have to ask you as we wrap up our time together, which has been so much fun, by the way. Like
It
you're
has,
coming
yeah.
back, okay?
Yeah,
Just so you
okay.
know, like you're
Yes.
coming back. But who do you think is the best dressed in the league right now? Or who are some of your top three?
Yeah. Okay. So my power ranking is not week to week, right? Or it's week to week. It's like who the order in which
Right.
they change. But I do separately, like who had the best dress this week. And I'll say for me, Brianna Stewart has just brought it. And she has a stylist and she has the money to do this. So that has to be said. Not everyone in the league is in a place where they can hire someone and get that done. But lately, well, before she was injured, it was Brianna Stewart, Cam Brink was number 2, and then I had A'ja Wilson. So those are my top 3, and they have not really changed. Cam Brink hasn't been there, so I took her out this past week. But she was solidly at the 2 spot. And I just think they all bring such different things to it. Brianna Stewart has a more, I guess, more masculine style.
Sure. She plays, I
Kind of,
think, around with it a little bit more in a way that's really cool. That she wore an amazing velour jumpsuit the other day, guys. It was giving Tony Soprano goes to the basketball game. I loved it.
And that was her like away outfit, right?
Yes.
And that's been my biggest critique is that she is somebody, whether they're home or away, she's always dressed and there's something thought out.
Yep.
And that hasn't been true. There are people who are like knocking it out of the park, and if they were at that level every week, they would be beating her. But because she consistently, you could tell someone is thinking about what she's wearing, right? Yeah. And I like that it's not the like typical image of, well, and I hate to say that because I don't know what people typically associate with women's sports at this point, but I like that she dresses she looks comfortable every week.
Yes.
Right? Like she doesn't look like she's going outside of herself. She's not trying to be too much of a fashion girly, but if I saw her at Paris Fashion Week next year, I'd be like, oh, that makes sense. Cam Brink, incredibly feminine style. And I think that too is important because, there were headlines I can remember growing up and that the women who presented themselves more femininely were bullied, right? Like, and that I'm sure never happened, right? But that was a story that someone wrote that I can remember being a big deal. And those women sometimes felt like they were underrepresented.
Yes.
And when they do dress up and they like to wear their makeup, that they are nitpicked or criticized.
Yes.
And so I think that right there's like 2 sides, and there are multiple, but that are important, right? And then A'ja Wilson, for the same way that South Carolina, for basketball culture in the South, Black women is important. A'ja, for me, the way she is dressed has reflected that. It doesn't look like she's changing who she is to kind of be more palatable. The choices, the risks that she's taking, I think represents who she is as a Black woman. And I think that that's important, and that pulls a certain audience in as well. And even the shirt she had that said, it's a beautiful day to be Black.
Was that Juneteenth? Was that her Juneteenth
fit?
Yes.
And so you see things like that where the little Black girl who plays basketball, and she may not like to wear a mini skirt, that may not be her vibe, but she goes, okay, like that shirt is relatable to me. Like I would wear that shirt. And so yeah, I think that top 3 for me represents the beauty of what the WNBA is right now. Like just so many different sides and representation. And yeah, like clearly these women care about how they're presenting. Cam Brink is going to have some sort of clothing partnership soon enough, like a very important one. And A'ja Wilson, I hope, according to her stylist, Amadi Brooks, she's getting more calls, right? To dress her, and more brands are reaching out. And Brianna Stewart, I think there's some sort of like menswear opportunity I know has to be like on the horizon. It has to be.
Oh
I
my
would
God.
love that. Can you imagine I told you, not a fashion girly. Is it Tom Brown?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Tom Brown. Like, can you imagine a partnership like that? Like, I feel like that would be huge for her.
How about like a velour sweatsuit partnership?
You were loving that velour.
I'm loving it. I love it. I bought a Juicy Couture sweatsuit like a couple of years ago because when I was in college, I could never afford one, and I got one. And I'm gonna say, did it heal my inner child? No, but
wait,
do I like it?
You bought it from from Juicy or not? Okay, I was thinking like Poshmark. Like I feel like every time I see those, I'm like, there's no way they were producing those. Still,
honestly, I don't think the quality is as good as it used to be, but yes, I did buy one, and I was pretty I was pretty happy about it. And every time I wear it, I get lots of compliments on it. People are always like, oh my God, wow, old school
Well,
juicy. Well, I do just want to say you and I have very similar tunnel fit rankings.
okay, good.
I have Asia Wilson as well. I also have Rakia Jackson.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's fair.
Okay.
She's been bringing it last couple weeks. Yep.
And then I gotta tell you my number one pick.
Uh-oh.
Ba-da-da-da-da, Inspector Nika. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Oh, okay. Well,
I
you
am
saw
obsessed
they
with
ranked her
Nika.
the number one rookie, best dress. And okay, the outfit she had yesterday, I will say, has really put her back in. She's been in the ranking. She's been at 10,
Yeah.
solidly at 10.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if she's not dressing like Seattle is weird. They don't seem to like if they didn't dress, like they just don't post a photo.
Right.
Or like if it's not, maybe the players are like, I don't want to be posted, or I'm not sure how they do it. But there seems to be fewer photos of Nika. And so, but her outfit yesterday was phenomenal. So I'm sure that will at least give her another bump.
So if you don't know, you got to look up, everyone. One of my favorite rookies to watch right now is Nika Mule.
Yeah.
She's really fun. Like she's was talking to somebody about her the other day and I was just like, she kind of just seems like a free spirit, which I enjoy. And what really solidified my Nika standum is that she wore a belted trench coat and sunglasses.
Yeah.
And she put up the pictures and it was a carousel of photos. And the last photo was a photo of Inspector Gadget. And I was
Okay.
like,
Yeah.
that's my kind of girl. Like it's a little quirky.
She does seem like she's like here for a good time. You know, she does
Yes.
give that energy off. Yeah.
And, I was listening to her talk a little bit. Her dad is a graphic designer.
Okay.
And her mom is very into fashion. So the three of them have actually been collaborating on a lot of her outfits together.
Wow. Didn't
Yeah.
know that.
Which I
Okay.
just thought was so cool. Like it's a family thing.
Yeah.
And I think it just speaks to your point of the fashion thing. I know there are probably people, men, who will sit there and be like, oh, I don't care about it being a beauty contest. Well, first of all, watch an NFL game, watch an NBA game, and watch them walk in because the
Mhm.
men do the same thing, y'all.
Exactly.
The
Yeah.
men do the same thing, but this is allowing women to be authentically themselves.
Yep. I agree.
And
Yeah.
so we are all men, women, we are all, non-binary people. We are all multifaceted. We are all not just one sport that we play or one outfit that we wear. And in having the conversation of like, Rakia Jackson looks awesome. This is an amazing fit. Like that is only expanding the world for everyone, not making it smaller.
Yep. Totally agree. Yeah. And there are so many pages dedicated to what men are wearing for sports. So yeah, again, it's always, it's like this double standard, but you can go find that right now if you'd like to. There are plenty of pages that solely care about what these guys are wearing when they show up to the game. And that has changed for them in the last 10 years. 10 years ago, few of them were dressing up. Few of them cared about this. Now there is a pressure to dress better. Same with the draft, right? It's the same evolution that, the women's game is having right now. The men have had to go through the same thing. If people are going to watch, these brands are going to dress you. And that's, you have the number one pick dressed in a big name designer. So actually the number one pick was not, I think it was a luxury brand, I think, but it did not look like.
Y'all, just because something is a luxury brand does not mean that it's going to look luxury.
Yeah. Yeah. Sadly. And some people don't, and I want to be fair. Some people don't care. Like
And that's fine.
Aliyah Boston has not had a tunnel fit. She comes up in her sweatpants and like she's there to play.
Yeah.
And I respect that as well. Right. I'm not trying to take eyes away from what they're actually there to do. You're there to play basketball. Who cares about if your makeup look good? I get it. But there are some of them who do care about this. And I think it contributes. It contributes to their brand and to the league.
Yeah. Well, Shanteona, thank you for being with us. This has been
so
so fun.
Yes.
Where can we find you?
Yeah. So on Instagram and TikTok, it's at Shanteona Keys, which you will probably need the spelling Shanteona Keys, like car keys. That's what I say when I call in an order, like car keys. But yes, at Shanteona Keys. Also at Genuinely Curious on Instagram for the podcast, and on YouTube, it's also Genuinely Curious.
We're going to link to all of Shantiona's, ways to find her. We're also going to link to all of these different things that we've talked about today, articles. We love to bring receipts here. You can time out
Yes.
how long Cailtin Clark was asked questions, and you'll say, oh, Meredith, you were right. Yes, I was. Not always right, but I have a receipt. Thank you so much for being with us today. This has been so much fun. As always, everyone, don't forget to be tuning into the WNBA this season and checking out Genuinely Curious.